Good morning and happy Passover to those of you celebrating this Holy Week. Thank you for joining us today to celebrate the achievements of a person that's led a truly remarkable life. It's fitting we honor Eva Kor in this historic building, whose dedication etched in stone reads to vindicate the principles of peace and justice in the world. This is truly why we are here today and what Eva has dedicated her life to. So welcome. I'm glad you've all come to celebrate Eva's life and purpose. Now let me introduce Dr. Dennis Sesso, who's the rabbi of Bethel Zedek congregation here in Indianapolis, to lead us with the invocation. Rabbi Sesso.
Thank you, Governor. The observance of the Jewish festival of Passover and of the Christian Holy Week, with their messages of liberation and renewal and hope, certainly add to the significance of this commemoration. Today is also World Civility Day, and Eva Kor has helped us to expand the meaning of civil discourse. Instead of crass rhetoric and recrimination, she offers the healing of outreach and reconciliation. So let us reflect on the significance of this moment. Some people are teachers who impart knowledge. Others are mentors who help shape persons. Some people are scholars who inform our understanding of the way things are, and others are models who transform our vision of how things might be. Eva Kor is a mentor and a model who has taught us about love and peace through the power of forgiveness. She has taught us that to forgive does not mean to forget or to absolve from responsibility. She has reminded us that we grow in memory and wither in forgetfulness. Eva has warned us that memory is not a prison, that memory should liberate us to be who we are, to become who we are meant to be. Eva endured cruelty, but she teaches generosity. She knew pain, but she offers healing and forgiveness. She experienced hatred, but she shows compassion. The Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel tells the story of a just man that came to the evil city of Sodom. He pleaded
Thank you, Rabbi Sasso. Thank you very much. Eva Kor, Governor Holcomb, and you noticed I went against protocol there in the order. I'm sorry, Governor. But you know, the governor is a kind of history guy, so we're friends on that level. And I'm deeply, deeply honored to be a part of this ceremony. To think about the meaning of the Sachem Award. When Governor Daniels created this award in 2006, he said the award would honor two dimensions of greatness: achievement and a virtuous life. Governor Holcomb will highlight the many ways in which Eva Kor embodies those qualities of virtue and achievement. What I've been asked to do is to connect those qualities to Indiana, to provide some context. Now, certainly, we Hoosiers value achievement. We value virtue. But we also value modesty. We don't like boasting. We don't like braggarts. This has been our heritage from pioneer days. The people who tilled the fields and churned the butter had little use for swelled heads. Now, this tradition of modesty is sometimes a burden because it creates a space for the fleeting fame of popular celebrities to enter onto our screens and our lives. The Sachem Award is not about celebrity. It's not about 15 minutes of fame on a red carpet or even an NBA draft. The Sachem is an honor only to those who create enduring footsteps of achievement, virtue, service, excellence. We're fortunate as Hoosiers to have heroes, not only celebrities, but heroes. Let me offer just a few of my personal favorites and urge you to find your own heroes. I'll start with my top choice. There's no question in my mind, it's Abraham Lincoln. The Indiana boy who read, observed, and thought, who on the Indiana frontier reached into a deep understanding of the human condition. No other American of his day, or before or since, is his equal, in my opinion. And Governor, I think we should aggressively claim Abraham Lincoln as a Hoosier. And when you're with your colleagues from Illinois or Kentucky, I would ask you please to speak up. Another of my heroes, largely unknown today, is William Wirt, a judge who presided at a trial on the Indiana frontier in 1824, who found 4 white men guilty of murdering Indians at a time when most white people thought that the only good Indian was a dead Indian. But it was more than that. In handing down his sentences, Judge Wick wrote some of the best words ever written on the soil of Indiana. "By what authority do we boast," the judge wrote, "of our being white? What principle of philosophy or of religion establishes the doctrine that the white skin is preferable in nature or in the sight of God to a red or black one?" Judge Wick was a wise man in 1824 in that village of Pendleton, a Sachem. Or let me move to the 20th century. Ada Schweitzer, a female physician who in the 1920s pioneered in infant care and in public health at a time when she was working with a state government with less enthusiasm for that subject. Or Wendell Willkie of Elkhart and Rushville, best known for his presidential bid in 1940, but I think his greatness lies elsewhere, in his global vision embodied in his 1943 book called One World, still worth reading today, and also in his willingness to work hard for racial equality at a time when across this state and nation, including in this capital city, many schools, restaurants, hotels, and swimming pools were closed to African Americans. And that brings me to an example of some of my African American heroes, a group of them, black lawyers, most in Indianapolis, most working pro bono in the 1930s and 40s, who took on the hardest civil rights case long before there was a civil rights movement. Lawyers Brokenberg, Bailey, Ransom, heroes of mine. Another of my heroes, Eli Lilly, not only because he built that pill factory, as he called it, down on McCarty Street, but because of his long and passionate commitment to building virtue and achievement for young people. These are some of my personal favorites. Hoosiers who left behind examples of achievement and virtue, Hoosiers who valued education, justice for all, service to all. Now, I'm a historian. I try to be honest. I want to suggest and acknowledge that we have other traditions, ones we'd sometimes like to forget. The obvious case, of course, is the Ku Klux Klan of the 1920s, a time when many white Protestant Hoosiers regarded Catholics, Jews, and African Americans as them, the others, those people, not truly Hoosiers. Or a second example, painful, less known, a eugenics movement in Indiana in the early 20th century, an Indiana public health program dedicated to involuntary sterilization of those judged to be feeble-minded and unfit. A small step down a very dangerous road. I mention these two examples to suggest that we have our share of ignorance, of meanness, of failure. And there's another negative Hoosier tradition, more muted. It's our tradition to be content with mediocrity sometimes, to believe sometimes that good enough is good enough, to cite the aphorism that has passed for Hoosier wisdom, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This good enough tradition may not produce villains, but it doesn't make heroes either. Good enough was never enough for the earliest recipients of the Sachem Award, Coach John Wooden, Father Ted Hesburgh. Never enough for Eva Kor, a hero who is not only a survivor of Auschwitz, but who rose to become a voice of courage, forgiveness, and humility, of humanity. In honoring her, we make a distinction between celebrities and heroes. In her story, we see the larger context that shaped lives and cultures, past and present. We honor not a celebrity, but a real sachem, a wise woman of Terre Haute, of Indiana, of America, of the world. And we honor our best traditions as Hoosiers, and we challenge ourselves to excellence, to achievement, to virtue. Thank you very much. I'm pleased now to welcome to the podium Governor Eric Holcomb.
Thank you, Dr. Madison, and good morning, one and all. I'm delighted to be with you this morning. As Indiana's governor, I have the high privilege of recognizing some amazing and accomplished individuals. But today's honoree is in a category all unto herself. A lot of people have heard about the Sagamore of the Wabash, but I'm guessing fewer know exactly the whole story about the Sachem. So let me take just a few moments to elaborate a bit on what Dr. Madison just shared. In 1945, it was Governor Ralph Gates who created the Sagamore of the Wabash as our state's highest recognition for distinguished Hoosiers. Then in 1970, Governor Edgar Whitcomb brought together a group of civic leaders to nominate potential recipients for the Sagamore. He called the group the Confederacy of Sachem, Sachem being the Algonquin term for village leaders. It meant wisdom and suggested judgment and grace. The group dissolved in 1989, but in 2005, Governor Whitcomb talked about this concept with Mitch Daniels after he became governor, and a new idea was born. While the bar was high, Governor Daniels proposed an even higher honor called the sachem. The idea was to recognize those rare individuals who combined a lifetime of accomplishment with moral virtue that has brought credit and honor to our state, Indiana. Achievement alone, without exemplary virtue, would not qualify someone for the sachem. Since 2005, only 11 sachems have been appointed, including the legendary coach and teacher John Wooden and the former Notre Dame president, Reverend Theodore Hesburgh. I am honored and humbled to present my first sachem as governor, and only the 12th in Indiana history, to Eva Moses Kor. Now, most of you here know Eva's heroic story of surviving Auschwitz, but not everyone knows of the impact her life's had since then, felt around the world. That's why I want to share a brief letter with you. It's from a middle-aged son to his father, a veteran who fought in World War II. In 2009, the veteran had visited Arlington Cemetery and told his son he felt guilty that he had survived the war when so many of his comrades had not. The son wrote him a letter back, and here's just a part of it. Quote, "If you think that all those men whose graves you visited deserved to be called heroes any more than you do, I think you are wrong. And now I'll tell you why. In February of 2008, I attended a speech given by Eva Kor, a survivor of Auschwitz concentration camp. She told the audience of high school students that when she got off the train after traveling for 4 days like cattle, she was separated from her mother and her father and older sisters. She never saw them again. She and her twin sister became experiments for Dr. Mengele's campaign to create a perfect German race. When she saw human bodies in the hospital, she established one goal in her life, and that was to stay alive. The letter continues with Eva's survival and her description of the liberation of Auschwitz. Then the son writes, "If you, Dad, and millions of others like you had not gone to war, she would not have been standing there addressing a group of young people who were more than amazed by what they heard and of her story. If Hitler had won the war, she would have been burned in an incinerator like we burn our grass clippings." This is just one small example of the power of Eva's story to inspire, whether high school students, a conflicted veteran of the war, or all of us in this audience and beyond. But if Eva's story ended with her survival, as powerful as that is, I'm not sure she'd be receiving this award today. It's what happened after Auschwitz that makes her story all the more remarkable. Eva lived with her pain for a long time. She says, quote, "I was a really good victim and proud to be a victim. I hated everybody." But when her sister twin sister, Miriam, died in 1993. Eva was determined to transform her horror and pain into something positive. Just as she had once pledged to stay alive, now she pledged to devote her life to ensuring that the Holocaust would never happen again. The Holocaust would never happen again. In 1995, she founded the Candles Holocaust Museum in Terre Haute, Indiana, to share the lessons from her experiences. She even found it in herself to meet with a former Nazi doctor, Hans Munch. She asked him if he would join her in Auschwitz to testify that the gas chambers were real. Dr. Munch agreed, which was no small thing, as it served as a powerful rebuke to Holocaust deniers all over the world. Because of the importance of this act, Eva wanted to give him a gift, but she struggled over what gift it should be. Then she had a revelation. She would write him a letter of forgiveness. It took her 4 months to write that letter. And while she knew it would be a meaningful gift for him, she also recognized it was going to be a life-changing gift to herself. By being able to forgive, she said, I felt all the pain and anger I carried around for 50 years was lifted from my shoulders. I was no longer a victim of Auschwitz, nor was I a prisoner of my tragic past. What began as a single act of forgiveness has grown into a philosophy with the power to transform each and every one of us and our world. Forgive your enemy, your worst enemy. Forgive everyone who has hurt you. Forgiveness is an act of self-healing, self-liberation, and self-empowerment. It will heal your soul, and it will set you free. These profound ideas speak to us today powerfully. We're reminded every day that acts of hatred and violence are not confined to the distant past. In fact, in 2003, the Candles Museum was firebombed by an arsonist and burned to the ground. When asked by reporters how she felt, Eva responded with her characteristic humor and resolve. She said, quote, I've had better days, but I've had worse days. Then, with the help of the community, she rebuilt that museum, and it reopened in 2005. In the exhibit on the firebombing, you will find the words, quote, light prevails over darkness, and love will always conquer hate. Like many of you, I've had the privilege of hearing Eva speak and have found her life, her words, every single one of them, and her example truly transformational. She is the living embodiment of true compassion. Her life proves there are no bounds on forgiveness, on human decency. Eva shows what our response should be to acts of bigotry and hatred through her daily mission to educate people and spread messages of peace and respect and civility. It is my deep honor to present my first Sachem Award to an exemplar of both achievement and virtue, Eva Moses Kor.
You did a good job. I can stand 10 minutes. That's okay. Don't I need a microphone? Yeah. You are. Oh, I am. Everybody can hear me. Well, thank you, first of all, Rabbi Sasso, Governor Whitcomb, and Dr. Forgot your name? Madison. You have all done a wonderful job in telling my story. So I don't know what I am left with, but I have a little speech, so I'm going to read it. Dear Governor Holcomb, fellow Hoosiers and friends, this is a very exciting time for me to receive the highest honor that a governor of Indiana can give a citizen of Indiana. I am humbled and very, very pleased to accept the Sachem Award today. As I am accepting this award, I am flooded by many memories from the past, and I would like to share with you some of them. I want you to realize 73 years ago today, we were living in a ghetto in Romania under Hungarian occupation. In May, we were herded into cattle carts and 4 days later arrived in Auschwitz. Within 30 minutes, my whole family was ripped apart and all died, except for Miriam and me, who were used as human guinea pigs by Dr. Mengele. The first night in Auschwitz, I was shocked to see dead children on the latrine floor, and I made a silent pledge that I would do everything within my power to make sure that Miriam and I survived and walked out of this camp alive. In Auschwitz, in our barracks, we were little girls, twins, between the ages of 2 and 16. We were huddling in our filthy bunk beds, crawling with lice and rats. We were starved for food, starved for human kindness, and starved for the love of the mothers and fathers we once had. We had no rights, but we had a fierce determination to live one more day, survive one more experiment. I was used 6 days a week in experiments. After one of those injections that I was given, I became very ill. I had a very high fever. My arms and legs were swollen and painful, and I was covered with red spots. Next visit to the blood lab, they measured my fever, and I was sent to the hospital. Mengele never examined me, but looked at my fever chart and then said, "Too bad, she's so young, she has only 2 weeks to live." I refused to die, and I made a second silent pledge that I would do whatever is within my power to prove Mengele wrong, to survive and be reunited with my sister. For the following 2 weeks, all I have is one clear memory. I was crawling on the barrack floor because I no longer could walk, and I was crawling to reach a faucet with water at the other end of the barrack. And as I was crawling, I kept fading in and out of consciousness, and even in a semi-conscious state of mind, I kept telling myself, I must survive, I must survive. And I did. Fast forward to 1960, I was the sergeant major in the Israeli army. Then I met and married a tourist from Terre Haute, Indiana, by the name of Eva Kor. He is also a survivor of the Holocaust, who was liberated by Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Neff from Terre Haute, Indiana. So he helped Mickey come to Terre Haute. And when I married Mickey in 1960, I came from Tel Aviv to Terre Haute. That's a pretty big jump. I spoke no English, and I found out that the streets were not paved with gold. Jews in Europe and Israel always talk about the fact that Jews in America were very rich. So we concluded at that time that the streets must be paved with gold, or that gold grows on trees. I found that not to be the case. I tried to explain to my family and friends in Israel where Indiana was located, since most of them thought of New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami when they thought of America. I told my late sister Miriam that Terre Haute was about 4 hours from Chicago. That helped her understand. I learned that although the streets were not paved with gold, the people of Indiana were as good as gold. They worked hard, believed in mutual respect, and the never ever giving up attitude that fit me very well. I learned English, and I got a job within 3 months. In 1961, our son Alex was born. Our daughter Rina was born in 1963. In 1965, I received my American citizenship. I was and still am a proud American citizen and a very proud Hoosier. In 1968, 3 years after I became a citizen, I opened a nursery school for underprivileged children in Terre Haute in the memory of Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy. I believed then, and I do today, that whether we are black or white, rich or poor, we all share the same world. And it is up to every one of us to improve it and make it the best world for everyone. Alex and Rina both graduated from Hoosier Universities, Butler and Purdue respectively, and I did not want to be left behind. So I went to school for 11 years and graduated from Indiana State University in 1990. In 1978, I began to lecture about my experiences in the death camp. It took some time, and I took some trips to Auschwitz, and in 1995, I forgave the Nazis. Often I am asked, how can anyone forgive the Nazis? And I always answer with a question. Do I deserve to be free from what they have done to me? Of course comes the answer. My forgiveness is an act of self-healing, which the government already described very well, self-liberation and self-empowerment. I am not hurting anyone, and it's free, which is wonderful. All my ideas are free. They cost no money. So it would not bother anybody's budget. It is healing and affordable. In 1995, I also opened Candle's Holocaust Museum and Education Center in Terre Haute, Indiana, the only Holocaust museum in Indiana. And CANDLE is an acronym for, if you write it vertically, CANDLES is Children of Auschwitz Nazi Deadly Lab Experiment Survivors. It is the only Holocaust museum in Indiana and the only one in the world that related to human experimentations, and one of the few places that has holographic interactive images of 13 Holocaust survivors, including me. Now here we are today in Indianapolis, a wonderful war memorial with my governor, Holcomb, and all of you wonderful friends coming from many places. I am trying to teach the world to heal through forgiveness. I am asking every single one of you to join me and the governor in this much needed endeavor, and to let forgiveness and healing start from the heart of this nation, right here in Indiana. Last year, I gave 170 lectures to schools, universities, churches, synagogues, civil groups. I also lectured in Israel, London, Poland, Romania, Vienna, and Berlin, telling people about my life as a survivor and a Hoosier, and how the peaceful place called Terre Haute, Indiana, was conducive for me to forgive the Nazis, to heal myself from the pain of the past. I invite everybody in the United States and in the world to visit our wonderful state and our great little museum in Terre Haute, Indiana. Governor Holcomb, I would like your help. And you have been doing so far pretty good. My dream is to go to Washington, D.C. and address the Congress of the United States. I would like to tell them that we all must stop fighting with each other and try to help one another, and if they keep fighting, they cannot help the Americans. As I was just yesterday telling a group of 2,500 students at Jasper, Indiana, I always tell the students, if I sent you home today and told you to come back in a week to think of one single thing you could do to help the world become better, I am sure you would come up with some answers. So what I want to tell the members of Congress, that maybe now that they are out for spring break, and somebody might carry it with the press and the media, I want them, when they come back, but if I could address them in person would be better, to come back with one idea every single one of them would have to try to get along and do the business of the people of the United States. Thank you, Governor Holcomb, for your wonderful Hoosier hospitality. And thank you all for coming to celebrate with me. I have been saying for some time, and some of you, my friends, know that my friends are the flowers in the garden of my life. What a superb garden you have created in my life. Each one of you beautiful and enriching my life. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you, Eva. I think that was the shot heard around the world.
I hope so.
You truly embody what the sachem is all about. Again, a life of exemplary achievement and exemplary virtue. As noted in letters you'll all find out in the front lobby from Vice President Pence, Senators Donnelly and Young, members of our congressional delegation. They can all again be seen out in the front lobby. We are all much better because of your example and your courage and your inspiration. We simply cannot see and hear your example enough. And while the sachem comes as no surprise, we do have a surprise for Eva today. Officials from the 500 Festival have asked me to announce that Eva has been named the Grand Marshal of the 2017 IPL 500 Festival Parade. And so it goes. She joins the likes of President Gerald Ford, Vice President Dan Quayle, Bob Hope, and several Medal of Honor recipients. She'll be honored at the 61st IPL 500 Festival Parade on Saturday, May 27th. On the wall, just inside the Candles Holocaust Museum, you will see the words of Irish author and statesman Edmund Burke, who said, quote, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." Eva, you remind us of that, each of us, of that each and every day, that it is our responsibility. In fact, it's really an obligation, not only to do good, but also to oppose hatred and bigotry and to fight for a world of peace and respect and civility each and every day in all that we do. Your example lights a path and has for many years to that better world. And for that, we offer our deepest thanks. And now I invite all of you to join us for a reception in the front lobby. Thank you for being here.